Hello, my dear friend, and welcome back to another evening of stories and adventures to help you unwind and fall asleep. Today, I have a very special story to share with you. It's one of the classics known to many, a romantic story called White Nights by Dostoevsky, a sentimental story from the diary of a dreamer. So settle in, relax, and enjoy the first night. It was a wonderful night, such a night as is only possible when we are young, dear reader. The sky was so starry, so bright, that looking at it, one couldn't help asking oneself whether ill-humored and capricious people could live under such a sky. This is a youthful question too, very youthful, but you should put it more frequently into your heart. I cannot help recalling my moral condition all that day. From early morning I had been oppressed by a strange despondency. It suddenly seemed to me that I was lonely, that everyone was forsaking me and going away from me. Of course, anyone is entitled to ask who everyone was, for though I had been living almost 8 years in Petersburg, I had hardly an acquaintance. But what did I want with acquaintances? I was acquainted with all of the city as it was, and that was why I felt as though they were all deserting me when all Petersburg packed up and went to its summer villa. I felt afraid of being left alone, and for 3 whole days I wandered about the town in profound dejection, not knowing what to do with myself, whether I walked down the huge alleys or in the gardens. There was not one face of those I had been accustomed to meet at the same time and place all the year. They, of course, do not know me, but I know them. I know them intimately. I have almost made a study of their faces, and am delighted when they're happy and downcast when they're under a cloud. I have almost struck up a friendship with one old man whom I meet every blessed day at the same hour by the fountain. Such a grave, pensive countenance. He's always whispering to himself and brandishing his left arm, while in his right arm he holds a long stick with a gold knob. He even notices me and takes a warm interest in me. If I happen not to be at a certain time in the same spot, I'm certain he feels disappointed. This is how it is that we all must bow to each other, especially when we're both in good humor. The other day, when we hadn't seen each other for 2 days and met on the third, we were actually touching our hats, but realizing in time, dropped our hands and passed each other with a look of interest. I know the houses too. As I walk along, they seem to run forward in the streets to look out at me from every window and almost to say, "Good morning, how do you do? I'm quite well, thank you, and have a few new stories in May." Or, "How are you? I'm being redecorated tomorrow." Or, "I was almost burned down and had such a fright," and so on. I have my favorites among them. Some are dear friends. One of them intends to be treated by the architects this summer. I shall go every day on purpose to see that the operation is not a failure. But I shall never forget an incident with a very pretty little house of a light pink color. It was such a charming little brick house It looked so hospitably at me and so proudly at its neighbors that my heart rejoiced when I happened to pass it. Suddenly last week I walked along the street, and when I looked at my friend, I heard somebody say, "They are painting me yellow." Oh no, they had spared nothing, neither column, and my poor little friend was as yellow as a canary. So now you understand, reader, in what sense I'm acquainted with the city. I have mentioned already that I had felt worried for 3 whole days before I guessed the cause of my uneasiness. And I felt ill at ease in the street. This one had gone and that one had gone, and what had become of the other. And at home I didn't feel like myself either. For 2 evenings I was puzzling my brain to think what was amiss in my corner, why I felt so uncomfortable in it. And in perplexity I scanned my grimy green walls, my ceiling covered with a spider web, the growth of which was successfully encouraged by my help. I looked over all my furniture, examined every chair, wondering whether the trouble lay there. For if one chair is not standing in the same position as it stood the day before, I'm not myself. I looked at the window, but it was all in vain. I was not a bit the better for it. I even bethought me to send for my help, and was giving her some fatherly admirations in regard to the spider web. And she simply stared at me in amazement and went away without saying a word. So the days passed, and one time I came back late from an engagement and was going back towards my lodgings. My way lay along the canal embankment, where at that hour you never meet a soul. It is true that I live in a very remote part of the town. I walked along singing, for when I'm happy, I'm always humming to myself like every happy man who has no friend or acquaintance with whom to share his joy. Suddenly I had a most unexpected adventure. Leaning on the canal railing stood a woman. With her elbows on the rail, she was apparently looking with great attention at the muddy water of the canal. She was wearing a very charming yellow hat. She's a girl, and I'm sure she's dark, I thought. She didn't seem to hear my footstep and didn't even stir when I passed by. Strange, I thought. She must be deeply absorbed in something, and all at once I stopped as though petrified. I heard a muffled sob. Yes, I wasn't mistaken. The girl was crying, and a minute later I heard sob after sob. My heart sank, and timid as I was with women, yet with what such a moment, I turned, took a step towards her, and should certainly have pronounced the word "Madam," if I had known that the exclamation has been uttered 1,000 times in every society novel. It was only that reflection stopped me, but while I was seeking for a word, the girl came to herself, looked around, startled, cast down her eyes, and slipped by me along the embankment. I at once followed her, but she, divining this, left the embankment, crossed the road, and walked along the pavement. I dare not cross the street after her. My heart was fluttering like a captured bird. All at once, a chance came to my aid. Along the same side of the pavement, there suddenly came into sight, not far from the girl, a gentleman in evening dress, of dignified years, though by no means of dignified carriage. He was staggering and cautiously leaning against the wall. The girl flew straight as an arrow with the timid haste one sees in all girls who do not want anyone to volunteer to accompany them home at night. And no doubt the staggering gentleman would have pursued her if my good luck hadn't prompted him. Suddenly, without a word to anyone, the gentleman set off and flew full speed in pursuit of my unknown lady. She was racing like the wind, but the staggering gentleman was overtook her. The girl uttered a shriek, and I blessed my luck for the excellent knotted stick, which happened on that occasion to be in my right hand. In a flash, I was on the other side of the street. In a flash, the obtrusive gentleman had taken in the position, had grasped the irresistible argument, fallen back without a word, and only when we were very far away protested against my action in rather vicious language. But his words hardly reached us. "Give me your hand," I said to the girl, "and he won't dare to annoy us further." She took my arm without a word, still trembling with excitement and terror. Oh, obtrusive gentleman, how I blessed you at that moment. I stole a glance at her, and she was very charming. On her black eyelashes there still glistered a tear. From her recent terror or her former grief, I don't know, but there was already a gleam of a smile on her lips. She too stole a glance at me, fairly blushed, and looked down. "There, you see, why did you drive me away? If I hadn't been there, nothing would have happened. But I didn't know you. I thought you too. Why do you know me now?" "A little. Here, for instance. Why are you trembling?" "Oh, you're right. At the first guess," I answered, delighted that my girl had intelligence that is never out of place in company with beauty. "Yes, from the first glance you gave, guess the sort of man you have to do with. Precisely. I'm shy with women. I'm agitated. I don't deny it. As much so as you were a minute ago with that gentleman alarmed you. I'm in some alarm now. It's like a dream, and never guessed, even in my sleep, that I would ever talk with any woman." "What, really?" "Yes. If my arm trembles, it is because it has never been held by a pretty little hand like yours. I'm a complete stranger to women. That is, I have never been used to them. You see, I'm alone. I don't even know how to talk to them. Here, I don't know now whether I haven't said something silly to you. Tell me frankly. I assure you beforehand that I'm quick to take offense." "No, nothing. Quite the contrary. And if you insist on my speaking frankly, I will tell you that women like such timidity, and if you want to know more, I like it too. I won't drive you away till I get home." "You will make me," I said, breathless with delight, "lose my timidity, and then farewell to all my chances." "Chances? What chances of what? That's not so nice." "I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. It was a slip of the tongue. But now can you expect one at such a moment to have no desire to be liked?" "Well, yes. But do, for goodness sake, be kind. Think what I am. Here I am, 26, and I have never seen anyone. How can I speak well, tactfully, and to the point? I will seem better to you when I have told you everything openly. Why, with no one with an ideal, with the one I dream of in my sleep, I make up regular romances in my dreams." "Ah, you don't know me. It's true, of course. I have met 2 or 3 women, but what sort of women were there? They were all landladies. But I shall make you laugh if I tell you what I have several times thought of speaking, just simply speaking, to some aristocratic lady in the street when she's alone. And so we went on, talking and laughing together, hand in hand, and the more I looked at the lady, the more bewitched I felt. And then we parted. Goodbye, till tomorrow. And I walked about all night. I couldn't make up my mind to go home. I was so happy, and I eagerly awaited tomorrow. The meetings between me and my secret lady continued. We met again the next night and the next. Nasinka kept crying. She was waiting for somebody, her lover, somebody so dear to her. I hated that she cried. But then on the other hand, I didn't want that other one to come and claim her. I love him, she told me, but I shall get over it. I must get over it. I cannot fail to get over it. Who knows? Perhaps it will all end today, for I hate him, for he has been laughing at me while you have been weeping here with me, for you have not repulsed me as he has, for you love me while he has never loved me, for in fact, I love you myself. Yes, I love you. I love you as you love me. I have told you so before, you heard it yourself. I love you because you are better than he is, because you are nobler than he is. The poor girl's emotion was so violent that she couldn't say more. She lay her head upon my shoulder, then upon my bosom, and wept bitterly. I comforted her, I persuaded her, but she couldn't stop crying. She kept pressing my hand and saying between her sobs, "Wait, it will be over in a minute. I want to tell you, you mustn't think that these tears, it's nothing, it's weakness. Wait till it's over." And last, she left off crying, dried her eyes, and we walked on again. I wanted to speak, but she still begged me to wait. We were silent. At last she plucked up courage and began to speak. "It's like this," she said, in a weak and quivering voice, in which, however, there was a note that pierced my heart with a sweet pang. "Don't think that I'm so light and inconstant. Don't think that I can forget and change so quickly. I have loved him for a whole year, and I swear I have never, even in thought, been unfaithful to him. He has despised me, he has been laughing at me, but he has insulted me and wounded my heart. I do not love him, for I can only love what is magnanimous, what understands me, what is generous, for I'm like that myself, and he is not worthy of me. Well, that's enough of him. He has done better than if he had deceived my expectations later and shown me later what he was. Well, it's over. But who knows, my dear friend," she went on, pressing my hand. "Who knows? Perhaps my whole love was a mistaken feeling, a delusion. Perhaps it began in mischief, in nonsense, because I was kept so strictly by my grandmother. Perhaps I ought to love another man, not him, a different one, who would have pity on me, But don't let us say any more about that." She broke off, breathless with emotion. "I only wanted to tell you that if, although I love him, if in spite of this you still say, if you feel that your love is so great that it may at last drive From my heart, my old feeling, if you will have pity on me, if you do not want to leave me alone to my fate without hope, without consolation, if you are ready to love me always as you do now, I swear to you that gratitude, that my love will be the last worthy of your love. Will you take my hand? Oh, my dear, I cried, breathless with sob. Oh, of course. Enough, enough. Well, now it's quite enough, she said, hardly able to control herself. Well, now all has been said, hasn't it, hasn't it? You're happy, I'm happy too. Not another word about it. Wait, spare me, talk of something else. Yes, of course, I whispered. Enough about that, now I'm happy. Let's talk of other things. Let us make haste and talk. I'm ready. And we didn't know what to say. We laughed, we wept. We said thousands of things meaningless and incomprehensive. At one moment we walked along the pavement and suddenly turned back and crossed the road. Then we stopped and went back again, like we were children. I'm living alone now, I began, but tomorrow, of course you know, I'm poor. I have only got 12,000 a month. But that doesn't matter. Of course not. And Granny has her pension, so she will not be burdened. We must take Granny. Of course, we must take Granny. And so we continued like that, making plans. We'll hire a room for us. We have a top floor, it's empty. We have an old lady lodging there. But she has gone away, and I know Granny would like to have a young man. I said to her, why a young man? And she said, oh, because I'm old. Only don't you fancy that I want him as a husband for you. So I guess it was with that idea. We both laughed. And we both continued to talk about tomorrow, about how our life will change tomorrow. We talked in and we are intoxicated with our plans, with our happiness. At one moment we stopped and talked for a long time at the same place. Then we went on again, and goodness knows where we went. Again tears and again laughter. All of a sudden, Nastinka would want to go home, and I wouldn't dare to detain her, but would want to see her in the house. She set off, and in a quarter of an hour found herself at the embankment of our sea. Then she would sigh, and tears would come into her eyes again. I would turn chill with dismay, but she would press my hand and force me to walk, to talk, to chatter as before. It's time I was home at last. I think it must be very late, she said. We must give over being childish. Yes. Only I shan't sleep tonight. I'm not going home. I don't think I shall sleep either. Only see me home. I should, of course. Only this time we really must get to the house. We must. Well, come along. Look at the sky. Tomorrow will be a lovely day. What a blue sky, what a moon. Look, that yellow cloud is covering it now. Look. But she didn't look at the cloud. She stood mute, as though turned to stone. A minute later, she huddled timid close up to me. Her hand trembled in my hand. I looked at her. She pressed still more closely to me. At that moment, a young man passed by us. He suddenly stopped, looked at us intently, and then again took a few steps on. My heart began throbbing. Who is it? I said in my undertone. It's he, she answered in a whisper. And I could hardly stand on my feet. Nastinka, it's you! I heard a voice behind us, and at some moment the young man took several steps towards us. Ah! She cried out. how she started, how she tore herself out of my hands and rushed to meet him. I stood and looked at them, utterly crushed, but she had hardly given him her hand, had hardly flung herself into his arms when she turned to me again, was beside me again in a flash, and before I knew where I was, she threw both hands around my neck and gave me a warm, tender kiss. Then, without saying a word to me, she rushed back to him again, took his hand, and drew him after her. I stood a long time looking after them. At last, the two vanished from my sight.